Oh hey, I'm glad you're here, 'cause this is a stakeout. However, I'm not putting you under arrest, and I'm not pretending to be a police officer, which is definitely illegal and an awkward way to start this episode. Now, there are rules and laws, and in some cases they provide a necessary structure to society. I mean, as much as my father doesn't think he needs someone telling him how fast it is safe to drive, I think we can all agree, daily, we see people who do in fact need that, as well as constant supervision. There are people who just don't think that things apply to them. I see it a lot at the farmer's market. There's a no-dog policy, and I won't get into whether it's food safety or a leash in a crowd is just dangerous, because it doesn't matter. It's just the policy. And yet, you'll see many people who suddenly can't read the sign, and they just look straight ahead and think that that makes their dog just another shopper. Or there are people who pick up their dog, like being 3 feet off the ground, turns a Schnauzer into a Jacquard Dorothy sports bag, which it does not. And every time they're confronted, they're baffled. Like, oh, what? Like they haven't been coming there for a decade. It's like, bro, instead of putting the dog on your shoulders and wearing a giant trench coat, you've tried every angle advised except for doing what they're being asked to do. And this was really prevalent in my life growing up in the aisles of my dad's video store. There are 2 laws to the aisles, and everyone knows this, because to get an account, you sign a document. You enter a contract. There's no possible way for you to be face-to-face signing on the dotted line and not know these 2 things. Number 1, if you do not return your tape by the assigned time, there is what? Everyone say it aloud. 1, 2, 3. Yes, a late fee. And if you said it out loud, you are both correct and getting weird looks from people around you. And yet time and time again, people would return a tape to rent a new one, and you'd say, well, there's a $2.99 late fee here that needs to be paid, and they'd be like, well, I only brought enough money for American Ninja 2, The Confrontation, and American Ninja 3, Blood Hunt, and I gotta have both or I won't know how the confrontation leads to a blood hunt. Which is a valid point. Except Michael Dudikoff wasn't even in the 3rd one. He comes back for the 4th. Am I right? Where my Dudikoff head's at? You? Over there? John? Anybody? Okay. Anyway, the second rule, or law, or code, and you can say this with me. We all know this one. It's catchy. Be kind, rewind. Which I'm sure when the first sticker was printed, all the store owners were like, well, we'll probably just need one of these. Flash forward to everything having 3 stickers on it. And eventually a penalty because people are just so self-absorbed they can't imagine that their actions would impact other people. So the big penalty of 50 cents was applied. Surely that squashed the onslaught of unrewound tapes. Nope. And I can just imagine the family at home like, honey, what did the pale kid at the video store tell us we had to do after the movie? Started with an R. Regurgitate? All right, kids, everyone in the bathroom. The credits are rolling on Mac and me, and we all got to toss our cookies. Walter Jr., you get your hiney in there. I don't care if you want to see who that cinematographer is. Get in there and purge. I ain't paying no 50 cents just because you like how that McDonald's scene looked. Then they return. The tape's unrewound. They're all weak from lack of nutrition from rewatching Mac and Me for 3 days because it certainly was a 99-cent rental. Okay, you know what? That never happened. And I'm way off of what I was initially talking about because maybe sometimes I need parameters too. I am of the people. But my point is, for this episode, we're speaking to a person whose job is a part of that system, which brings us to the intro. Here we go. The film is Dead Heat. The guest is a police officer, and this is VH-Us. Hello, and welcome to VH-Us, the podcast where each episode is about a film, and the guest has the profession portrayed in the film. You can find us on Instagram at vh.us, VHS_podcast on Twitter, and we do have a Facebook and Patreon, which you can easily find as well. I'm your host, Dirk Marshall, and I'm joined in the studio today by Jeremy, who is a police officer. Thank you for being here.
Thank you.
People can find more about you by breaking the law.
That is true.
You also do a lot of things that don't involve that, but
yes.
Which I won't get into, but I am a very good person, so except for one time in Seattle, I would not have met you except for under these circumstances, so I'm pretty happy about that. The reason I'm joined by Jeremy is because we're brought together by the film Dead Heat. Was this a first-time watch for you?
Yes, it was.
Awesome. I chose this for a specific reason. Police officers, I have a lot of respect for people in the force that keep people safe. And as I was telling you before we were live, uh, my wife and I have had numerous encounters where we had to call the services of police officers, and we really appreciate that.
Thank you.
So I wanted something a little light and had some levity to it. And when I reached out to you, you said you don't really watch a lot of movies that involve police unless it's maybe on the lighter end of things.
Yes.
Yeah, so I chose this film, which is a riff on a film from 1949 called DOA, where the character Frank Bigelow has been poisoned and only has a few days to live and tries to find out who has killed him and why.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, it's a little interesting fact. The synopsis for Dead Heat is a cop and his undead partner must chase down the diabolical villain who killed him. At the time of this recording, you can rent it at Movie Madness, buy the DVD online, stream it on Amazon or iTunes. So that's great, because people can find this film that a lot of people haven't heard of.
Yeah.
First, we'll put the film in context. The director is Mark Goldblatt. He did Dead Heat in 88, The Punisher in 89, but as an editor, he did a lot of films that are a little bit more well-known. In 78 he did Piranha. In 80 he did Humanoids from the Deep. 81, Howling. 81, Enter the Ninja. Yeah, that's a good one.
Yeah.
81, Halloween 2. 84, something called The Terminator.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah. And then Rambo First Blood Part 2, Commando, Nightbreed, Predator 2, Terminator 2, Judgment Day, True Lies, Showgirls, Starship Troopers, Armageddon, Bad Boys 2, and it keeps going. So,
wow.
Yeah, the director of Dead Heat is actually a fantastic editor.
Yeah.
I wouldn't have known that if I hadn't looked it up. The cinematographer is Robert D. Yauman. Did Johnny Be Good in 88, Dead Heat in 88, Drugstore Cowboy in 89, Rushmore in 98, Dogma in 99, Royal Tenenbaums in 2001. He turns out he's Wes Anderson's cinematographer, so part of the reason all of his films look so great is from a person that did cinematography for Dead Heat.
Wow.
Yeah, which is pretty unbelievable. He even did The French Dispatch, which is the new movie Wes Anderson did coming out this year. The editor, Harvey Rosenstock, Teen Wolf 2, Dead Heat, Curly Sue, Scent of a Woman. The editor of Dead Heat did Scent of a Woman, Tombstone, Kiss the Girls, both Dolphin Tales movies, and he's done a ton of episodes of Donovan and Homeland.
Wow.
So I love to talk about these things because someone might watch Dead Heat and think, oh, it's like this quirky 80s film or whatever. These people didn't do anything else. But oftentimes you find that these people did a lot.
Yeah, I've seen a lot of those movies.
Yes. Actors. So we got Treat Williams. He's in Marathon Man uncredited. His big breakout was Hair in 79. He played an uncredited trooper in Empire Strikes Back, which is fascinating because that's a big thing now where they just put, whatever big actor as a trooper in Star Wars.
Yeah.
Dead Heat in 88. Mulholland Falls in 96. The Phantom in 96. Devil's Own in 97. Deep Rising, which is one of my favorites. He had the series The Substitute. There's 4 films there. And he has 4 movies coming out this year, including, Christmas on the Square, opposite Dolly Parton.
Oh,
yeah.
I'll have to look for that one.
There's one. We also have Joe Piscopo, who famously did SNL, Johnny Dangerously in 84, Wise Guys in 86 with Danny DeVito, Dead Heat, Sidekicks in 92, and he's in a new film called Spring Break 83. The synopsis is about kids, but the stars listed this way: Morgan Fairchild, Joe Pantaleone, Alan Richards, Lee Majors, and Eric Estrada. So I don't know if it's
That'll be interesting.
Yeah, if it's a de-aging situation. Anyway, it's very strange. And then the last actor I wanted to mention is Darren McGavin. He's a legend. He had an epic run of television starting in 1945. Man with the Golden Arm in 55. Tons of TV. He was Kolchak the Night Stalker, 20 episodes of that. Most people know him from a 1983 film called A Christmas Story, where he gets a lamp that's a woman's leg. He did Turk 182, Raw Deal in 86, Dead Heat in 88, and Billy Madison in 95. So pretty great. Steve Johnson did all the special effects. He also worked on Predator, Leviathan, Nightmare on Elm Street 4, Howling 4 and 5, Species 2, Suburban Commando with Hulk Hogan, and Spider-Man 2 in 2004. So those are all the people kind of working within this very strange buddy cop film, which was written by the writer's brother wrote Lethal Weapon. So there's kind of a pedigree of buddy cop situations going on.
Okay.
Here. Yeah. The film starts with an aerial shot, which is actually stock footage because they couldn't afford to have a helicopter, which we see a pattern of that in this film. They made a film for only $5 million, so...
Wow.
Yeah, they kind of got their every penny. We see two robbers, one of which is Peter Kent, who is the body double for Arnold Schwarzenegger in Predator and Terminator.
Interesting.
Yeah. He's one of the two guys with the funny masks,
Yeah.
which are like the weirdest masks I've seen.
Yeah, they were.
It's like they don't fit at all.
No.
It's so weird. Like they had the masks first and then cast it, and they're like, oh, just really stretch it onto your head.
All right! First on the counter, lady!
Yeah.
The two robbers head into a jewelry store, put on a heist, as the kids are saying. They don leather hoods that are definitely too small, and my favorite moment is they both tuck their huge Uzis in the front of their pants.
Yep, that was very uncomfortable.
Yeah, they don't set it. I don't
No.
know if there's safeties on those things, but next we see Treat and Joe, and these are our buddy cops.
Mm-hmm.
One of them straight-laced, Treat driving, and then Joe Piscopo, on his side of the car, they put like nudie girl pictures and like weird plastic figures, and he's like drumming to the music like he's a real wild card.
Yep.
It's really they make a clear path to who the characters are right away.
Yes.
Yeah.
Doug, what? I thought that we were going plain clothes today. Why didn't you tell me we were going undercover?
Didn't ask. What's the matter, Rod?
I look like an FBI agent on a Rose Bowl float.
They have some back and forth with their buddy cop things. As a police officer, you probably have to wear the police officer outfit. You don't get to pick if you're going to wear a suit or a leather jacket or...
No, it's mostly a uniform unless you have a special assignment.
Got it.
Yes.
And I wanted to actually break from my notes for a second because in researching this and trying to find a guest, I realized that I don't understand the different roles. Like in movies, people say he's a beat cop, he's a detective, I don't know. I know that if someone has a dog, that's their thing. But like, what sort of, how does it work? Do you get to audition for a part or like?
Normally how it works is people put in for special assignments, whether
Okay.
that's detective, K-9, school resource officers. Some bigger agencies have all kinds of specialty positions. And if you're lucky enough to get chosen for those positions, sometimes you get to wear a suit all the time. Sometimes you get to dress up if you're a narcotics detective. You get to
Okay.
wear the leather jacket with the torn up jeans and
Yes.
let your hair grow out. So a lot of it just depends on assignments you get chosen for.
So you work for the department, but you can have different assignments?
Yes.
Oh,
Yes.
that never clicked with me, but maybe most people know. I don't know. So is a detective a position or is that an assignment?
Normally it's a assignment. Some departments, once you become a detective, that's where you're at for the rest of your career.
Okay.
Others are, you may do a 5-year stint in detective and then rotate out on the road so everybody kind of gets a shot at it.
Okay.
So I did that for a little while. I got to dress up in the suit and the tie and
Whoa.
look good for quite a while, and then went back to the road in a uniform.
And as you go through different assignments and things and find things maybe perhaps that you like more or you're more attuned to, can you like sort of campaign to maintain that, or is it still sort of expected that you rotate around?
The agency I'm at, you can kind of campaign and stay in it. They may rotate you out at a certain point. Some of the bigger areas, like I said, if you're good at it, they'll keep you in there.
Got it.
If maybe they're thinking the road's better for you, a different assignment, they may put you back out somewhere else.
Sure. And the thing you always see in movies, the big trope, is if you do anything crazy, you're going to be seated at the desk, and then everyone's going to mock you because you're a desk jockey. Is that a real thing, or is this just a movie thing?
More of a movie
Okay.
thing. Every now and again, you'll get pulled in, and maybe another.
They're called pencil pushers and all kinds of...
Yeah. You don't really get put behind a desk, but
Okay.
in a few weeks, you may pick a little flack from your buddies.
Got it. Okay. That makes sense.
Freeze! Drop your weapons!
They shoot the robbers, but the robbers won't stay down. They are zombie jewel thieves, and so we're introduced to the first sort of horror movie trope that's differing this buddy cop film, if you will. You see this a lot in films with people on PCP, especially in the 80s. Is this a real thing? Like, does PCP, is that still prevalent, and do people have superpowers?
I've never seen PCP. I've heard of it.
Got it.
It's something everybody's trained on because, yes, they do have superpowers, and you've seen training videos and stuff of back east when guys are on PCP. So it's something to be aware of.
Okay, cool. I always wondered that. The stunt director is Dan Bradley. He did Jackass and Seabiscuit, which is quite quite a variation.
Yeah.
Finally, one of them drops a grenade. And then Treat very aggressively rams the other one with a car.
Yep. Yes, he did.
It's quite a moment. Rob Picardo is the head cop. What do you call them? Sergeants, commanders? What is?
Sergeant, lieutenant, incident commander.
Who would be like in the incident like that? Because he's like behind the cars with the other police squad. So would he be?
He'd probably be the incident commander.
Incident commander. Okay, great. So that's Bob Picardo. He played all the monsters and explorers, as well as being on Star Trek Voyager, and did a ton of voice work. Super talented guy. Then they're back at the police station, and they get chewed out for their recklessness.
Yep.
Unauthorized use of a city vehicle. Reckless endangerment of property and lives. Use of a non-regulation firearm.
That was me, not Bigelow, sir.
Disrespectful conduct. Flippant and tasteless verbal remarks.
That was me.
And 18 parking tickets so far this month. Need I point out that you guys are already on probation twice? And that this morning's cowboy adventure puts both of you on the endangered species list, and that your badges go into the shitter if you screw up just one more time.
This happens a lot in buddy cop films. Do you have a? Is this a? I try to stay away from like realism in these movies because I'm not interested in that. But what you always see, Lethal Weapon, all these movies is like they go rogue and crazy, and then there's the commander or supervisor, whoever it is, that just reams them for it. How is this?
You do see that from time to time,
Okay.
but normally you're not back out on the road.
Oh, got it.
You know, an hour later, you're normally behind a desk doing reports.
Got it.
Or you may be going home for the afternoon.
Okay, cool. But normally you have protocol things that you're sticking to.
Yes.
You're not going to do what Treat did, like hop in a car and shoot a shotgun at them driving back and forth in the middle of a gun battle.
Correct.
Okay. Oh, man. Piscopo improvises a line in this scene where he says, "Call me Thursday" to a nun, which is like a very 80s thing there. We see Martha Quinn, one of the first MTV VJs on the TV screen. She was hired to be the news reporter in that.
Ended in bloodshed today, part of what police are calling the most violent string of robberies in city history.
And you barely even see her. But
Yeah, I didn't know that.
Good old Martha. The entire production was granted free Mrs. Fields cookies because of this scene. As long as Joe Piscopo picked up the bag and ate one of the cookies, Miss Fields sent the entire production free cookies for the duration of the film.
Yeah.
Good product placement, because everyone went to Dead Heat and was like, I gotta get some of those cookies.
Yeah.
We go to the morgue, and Joe's on the way there says,
Did you ever wonder about your death day, Roger? Let's say your death day was, I don't know, April 23rd, and somehow you knew that. You could have a death day party.
and he has this it's like the deepest moment for this character throughout the entire film, because he's kind of like the meathead guy, he's very into bodybuilding, which got him the role in the first place. But it's an odd section because he's thinking about this, whereas Treat Williams is the brains, and he's like the bronze of the situation, so to speak.
So how have you been?
I have a home phone, Roger. Using the mutilated remains of street scum as an excuse to ask after my health is not exactly what I would call thoughtful.
And you call me degenerate.
We meet Claire Kirkconnell. She's the medical examiner. She did a ton of TV, like T.J. Hooker, so some more police work.
Yeah.
And the A-Team. And then in comes Darren McGavin.
Dr. McNabb, I am not in the habit of signing a death certificate for someone who just doesn't feel well.
Well, I would hope not.
But the fact remains that either you screwed up or these two boys got up after you were done and strolled out of here.
I never forget a body, Doctor.
He when they were filming this, Darren McGavin he's like a legend compared to everyone else that was on screen, and he would have them actually run lines in between and do all these very like classic actor sort of things, like bringing the cast together and being like, okay, let's go over this, let's get the timing right. And not a lot of times you would think about Dead Heat in a way that you would think like they were rehearsing and trying to get the emotion of a scene. But
Right.
I just love the level of acting that goes into these things, that a lot of times people just thought it was like a fun movie to watch. But behind the scenes, there's all of these talented people taking it really seriously. And that's kind of what makes it, I think, so enjoyable. Treat goes to see Claire, and she's just smoking, which is something you don't see anymore.
No, you don't.
The office scene has a frozen fish tank, which is really weird.
Yeah, that was a little odd. I noticed that.
She says that there's a chemical in the bodies of the people that were shot, and that they need to go check out this drug company.
Trace quantities of sulfathiazole, a drug once used in bacterial infections. Pretty obscure stuff.
Dante Pharmaceuticals.
Recent purchaser of 50 kilos of sulfathiazole.
Yes.
So off they go to a water plant that they turned into the drug company. The guy up front is reading a Playboy. It's very strange. And then Lindsay Frost enters, playing Randy James.
What's this all about, officer?
Well, we're not at liberty to disclose the details, Miss James, but we are interested in a recent purchase you made of a drug called sulfathiazole.
And if you know any zombies.
She is our leading lady, our romantic lead, I guess you would say. She's in a wicked pantsuit. And Lindsay's brother is Mark Frost, who co-created Twin Peaks with David Lynch, which is pretty interesting. She was a regular on As the World Turns, and she took over that role from Jodie Foster when she went on to the big screen. He says, "I hope I don't offend you," and then just shows her pictures of dead people. Is this protocol? Is that...
No,
Okay.
no. Normally we don't show pictures of dead people.
Yeah. They're the actual pictures from like the coroner office. So I was like,
Yep.
Wouldn't you have to sign out those pictures? Or
You would think, and they're Polaroids
Yes!
too, which was kind of odd.
Yeah, it's so strange. Piscopo says,
You know, Miss James, I gotta take a leak so bad my teeth are floating. Is there a little boys' room around here? I just got pee-pee.
which is so charming.
Yeah.
So Piscopo. And then he sneaks into the resurrection room, which is a really cool set for such a low-budget film at the time. The big crazy machine with the crystal things that stick up. It's pretty awesome. Patrick Reed Johnson worked on the special effects. He wrote Space Invaders and Dragonheart, and he made the mask for the crazed zombie biker that wakes up in this scene. And he directed Angus, as well as Space Invaders, so it's kind of interesting. Special effects and directing, kind of switching roles like you can do in the department, I guess. Different assignments. The crazy zombie biker wakes up and fights him. Treat gets locked in the speaker room, is what I'm calling it.
Yeah, it looks like big speakers
Yeah,
on each
huge
side.
speakers. A gloved hand turns the machine on. Piscopo bludgeons the biker, shoots the creepy secretary guy, but the oxygen gets sucked out of the room, and Treat dies. The coroner shows up, and he says, "What happened?" And Joe says,
Got locked in the decompression room. Died the way dogs are supposed to die.
which I don't think is accurate. I don't think that's how dogs are supposed to die.
No.
You don't put them in a room and suck the air out. It's a very strange...
Yeah.
I mean, I get the... Okay, anyway. She and Joe investigate the resurrection chamber, and she says...
This is how they do it, Doug. This is how they resurrect the dead.
So they put Treat on the machine, which I don't think this is protocol either, because where was... Like, somebody would have... The body's just left there. They're completely unsupervised.
Yeah, that doesn't happen very often.
So
Bodies
weird.
just don't disappear.
Yeah, it's so bizarre. And then they turn the machine on to bring him back. We learn that his full name is Roger Mortis. Yep, there it is. The electrical elements, the blue lightning in this, is directly borrowed from Terminator, because the special effects person also worked on Terminator. So when Arnold first appears on the concrete naked in Terminator, this is the same lightning effect.
Oh.
Just inserted into... So they save money there as well, just like the aerial shot.
Okay.
Yeah, getting the most out of that $5 million. Treat comes back and he says...
Hi, guys.
And he's like super buoyant and friendly and carefree.
Yep.
He's really great in this, but he's dead. He has no pulse, no heartbeat. And Rebecca says, "You haven't heard the worst of it." And Treat says,
I'm dead, Rebecca. How much worse can it get?
one of the main films I mentioned is DOA from 1949 by Rudolph Mattei. It stars Edward O'Brien, where somebody poisons his drink and he has 24 hours to find the killer. This movie takes it one step further. The detective is dead, and he only has 12 hours.
Yep.
So they kind of just updated this thing that not a lot of people are rewatching 1949 cinema, so, it works to their advantage. Treat starts losing his color, so they buy him lipstick.
Yes.
This is another great funny moment where he gets mulberry wine. My wife, watching this on Thursday, was instantly saying, "That's not his color," before he even put it on. And then he puts it on. It's the wrong shade. It's a funny gag. Joe says it really brings out your eyes. And then we get some sort of offensive portrayals of like classic homosexual 80s humor. As long as you're looking at films in the context of when they were made, it's pretty commonplace, and it could have been way worse. So you a lot of these films, you just kind of roll over these moments because it's a product of its time.
Yep.
They go to Lindsay Frost's house and search her purse. And they play a tape of a dying man, and we see Vincent Price is in this movie.
Yes.
This may be the last time that I ever talk to you. And I want you to know certain things that I was unable to say.
Which is pretty amazing. The staging in this 80s house is incredible. I love this era of TV and film because everything's made like it's a music video set. Like, it's so wild.
Yep.
And there's never banisters. Every stair is just an open staircase. It's
Yeah.
like something, I don't know why they did this, but in come two zombies. One of them's played by Pons Mar. He's the white guy. He was Sarad in Masters of the Universe, Fu in The Golden Child. He was in the entire TV series Dinosaurs, if you remember that.
Yeah.
Yeah, he was Theodore Rex in Theodore Rex, which is more dinosaur work, and he's the lead wheeler in the terrifying film Return to Oz.
Oh.
Yeah, he gave me nightmares. DeJuan Scott's the African-American pool zombie, and because of his height, he played Bigfoot in The Magic World of Disney, and then he was the stunt person in the suit for Harry and the Hendersons, and then was Harry in the TV series. Which is pretty amazing. So those are two people in their makeup effects that show up at the pool. Treat gets shot up by the Uzi but keeps moving because it doesn't matter. He's dead.
No.
They fall. There's a pool fight. Treat jumps out of a hot tub, which is a direct homage to Rambo 2, which the editor, worked on. So it's kind of funny that they're like working in stuff from his repertoire. In the original script, there's a part where Joe pauses and says to Treat, "At least we know the dead zombie in the hot tub's name," and Treat says, "What is it?" And he says, "Stew." Somehow that ended up on the cutting room floor. They chat with Lindsay Frost about Vincent Price. We learn it's her dad.
Yeah.
And he's dead. Then we see Treat brush his hair and clumps are coming out.
Mm-hmm.
So we're like, okay, time's ticking. We're moving forward. He opens the mirror to put the comb back, and we get a shot of a zombie screaming.
Yep.
And then he realizes it's just his own mortality, I guess,
Right.
staring him in the face. Something that freaks me out is that we don't know their origin story, but we also don't know yours. So what prompted you to want to become a police officer?
It's something I wanted to do in high school. I have family that was involved in law enforcement, and when I got out of high school, I went into a couple different things. I did electrical, I did carpet, and kind of kept going back to law enforcement, and I became a reserve, and then I was hired in the jail, and I got to do that for 5 years before actually...
What is a reserve?
Reserve is a volunteer.
Okay.
You're going and getting not paid to go do the job or to help police officers. You're not doing their job, but you get to help. You learn kind of the ins and outs of it, almost like an apprenticeship.
Okay, yeah.
It's a good way to get into it and figure out if it's something you really want to do.
Got it.
Yeah. So went and did that. And
then jail.
Then I worked there for 5 years, got started. That was actually a really good place to start out. I learned a lot of stuff. Mostly a lot of these guys, once they're inside and they're away from the drugs and the alcohol, they're just like anybody else. It's just these addiction issues and stuff they fight.
Yep.
Trying to get help and stuff. So, talking to them and learning kind of where they're coming from or some of the addiction issues they face. It was a real learning experience for me.
That's something that my wife and I both, I think, encountered in social work, is because you're not, nowadays, especially online and things, you can put yourself in a little box and surround yourself with everyone that thinks like you and is like you. But really, when you're out there with everybody, it helps to be exposed to these things because it breaks down preconceived notions that maybe you had, you know, and then you suddenly realize, like, oh, like, we're all people, and some of us have addiction issues, or, you know, make errors in judgment or get coerced into doing things that we maybe didn't even know were that bad or whatever. And then you're just like, oh, got it. Okay. Like, and it sounds like that sort of exposure in prison was that.
It was a really good start for me. I think it really taught me how to kind of approach people, and like you said, keeps it in mind that they're people, that they're fighting a different battle than I might be, and to treat them with dignity.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
And then after the 5 years in jail,
then I went and was hired on, and I've been with an agency for 15 years now. Really enjoyed it. Really like getting out and helping people, and I've had a few different assignments. Like I said earlier, I was a detective for 3 years. Really enjoyed that assignment, and I've been in the schools for 6 or 7 years now, and that's been an adventure. It's something different to do, and I've really enjoyed that too.
That's awesome. Because of this podcast, I'm now curious about most people's jobs, and when we were doing an event in San Francisco, they had a lot of police presence at where this event was, and outside there was 4 police officers. One of them had a dog, and I saw the dog, and I knew I couldn't ask the dog about his job, but I wanted to know if they get, what their work week is, and so I asked the officer, and super friendly, and was just like, oh yeah, they work 410s, and I was just like, wait, what? Like, and then the reality of letting a police dog, because other dogs don't have jobs, so I was like, when that dog's around other dogs, it's like, well, I gotta go to work, and the other dogs are like, what are you talking about? It was just such a strange thing, but I loved the serious way that they just kind of like, yeah, they work 410s, and then they get, paid time off and things. I'm like, what?
Yep, meal breaks.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. It's fascinating. So when you're out and about, do you have like a beat, or in movies you see people just sitting in cars, officers are just sitting there waiting for something to happen, or they're doing like a speeding zone or something? Do you have like an area that you patrol, or?
Yeah, I'm in a small enough town. We're not split up into districts like some of the larger areas, so kind of the whole town is mine. I don't really sit around just waiting for something to happen. I drive around. I'll get out and walk around a little bit, and depending on what shift I'm working and where I'm working, talk to people, run by Starbucks, get my coffee in the morning. Run radar, but stay busy, drive around, be seen.
Yeah. Have a presence.
Yes.
Let people know. Yeah, that makes sense. Do you have a scheduled lunch, or does it just fluctuate around whether you're called or not?
It fluctuates around calls. Sometimes I don't get lunch till I work a 10-hour shift, and sometimes it's 7 or 8 hours in before I get lunch, and other times it's kind of routine where I get it after 4 or 5 hours. So it depends on the day.
Wow. Any favorite places to eat where you're at? Do you have like, I love to go to this place, or I know this place is fast?
We've got a couple really good places. There's a Noise.
Noise, like Noise?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Asian food is really good.
Nice.
Great. Then it used to be Muchos Gracias, but I believe it's called Victorino's now. They've got really good breakfast burritos.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, and they're open 24 hours, so good place to go.
Perfect.
Yep.
Good. Got some shout outs there. Well, I hope it's better than where they go, which is a butcher in Chinatown.
Yes, much, much better.
The butcher is Professor Toru Tanaka, who was a wrestler. He was the butler in Pee-wee's Big Adventure and Sub-Zero in Running Man.
Okay.
Yeah, love Running Man. Is it protocol to bring people on in dangerous investigations? Because
not normally.
My wife was like, this is probably not advised.
Yeah, no, we normally don't take people on stuff like that.
Ah, Miss James.
Always a pleasure.
Mr. Thule, something terrible has happened.
Yes, I know. Are these your friends, the police detectives?
Got it right the first time, Pops.
We're looking for the man who takes deliveries from Dante Pharmaceuticals.
You have found him.
Key Luke enters, and he was the main guy to Charlie Chan. Most of us recognize him, though, as the guy who sells the Mogwai and Gremlins.
Yep.
He also did a ton of voice work for cartoons. He hits a button, the lightning's back from Terminator,
Yep.
and zombifies all the dead animals in the butcher shop. It's an insane special effects sequence.
Yes, it is.
It's the part where my wife was, she's working on emails and stuff, and she looks up and she's like, how have I never seen this? And it's true. It's one of those scenes that once you've seen Dead Heat, you're like, oh, the butcher shop, like you know the scene. But I'm surprised it's not parts of clip shows because it's totally insane what happens in this sequence.
Yep.
A cow liver flies onto Treat Williams' face.
Yep.
Joe Piscopo, he's battling all kinds of things.
I think a pig at one point.
Yes, a pig, a giant headless cow attacks him, which is utter insanity. Once they shoot the resurrection ray. Oh, in this scene, Treat takes a cleaver to the hand.
Yes.
No, this was cut out theatrically because the MPA said it was too graphic. And then it's been sort of partially reinserted back into the film. So you can see how they did the special effects split in the middle of his hand.
Yeah.
I guess there was a bunch of things that they made the prosthetics and everything of, and then the MPA was just like, no, this is too graphic. Which, I mean, he can't get hurt. He's a cartoon character at this point.
Yeah.
You know, it's like, but all right. They shoot the ray. Everything goes back to rotting. Frost notices Treat's hand and says, you're hurt, to which he replies, lady, I'm fucking dead.
Mm-hmm.
Which is more great death comedy. There was a backroom scene with a zombie duck head, which was demanded to be shot, and so they wrote the scene as dumb as possible, and because they thought it would end up on the cutting room floor. And then the producers were like, perfect, keep it in. So they stuck with a scene that the filmmakers aren't excited about. It's especially after this massive effect sequence, but they're like, well, there it is, it's in the film. We get a classic research library scene.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, originally they had a zombie in the library attack them, but then that part was cut as well.
Here's another one. Oliver Lang, microchip wizard, March 4th.
Here's another. Howard Davison, commodities broker, April 3rd. You see any pattern?
You see this trope a lot in detective movies where detectives, Seven is a great example, spend
Yes.
so much time in a library. Have any of your assignments involved you have to go to a library?
No.
Yeah,
No.
okay. Yeah, it's just an interesting thing. You always see them like going to a card catalog and reading books, and then they're just like, I've got the killer. Like, it's like, all right. Treat gets sad. He trots away. Joe follows and they talk, and they're reading obituaries, and Roger says that they're writing his right now. He has this moment of humanity. And Piscopo says,
You remember when we were in training? They always told us you can't be a good cop if you're a dead cop. Here's your chance to prove them wrong.
which is interesting. Speaking of good, this is a good time as any for us to take a word from our sponsor, so we'll be right back after this. Are you tired of boring food and condiments made of processed ingredients? Then you need Marshall's Hot Sauce. Each small batch is made by Sarah Marshall, who sources from local farmers. Her dedication to knowing the sources carries on through right down to knowing the single origin beekeeper and even the harvester of the sea salt. Each sauce is plant-based, gluten-free, and packed with deliciousness. Annual offerings from mild to spicy, being smoked habanero barbecue, red chili lime, serrano ginger lemongrass, and habanero carrot curry. Not to mention a rotating offering of limited edition sauces like Whiskey Smoked Ghost, Caramelized Scorpion Ghost, Volcano Sparkle, and even a collaboration with the Heatonist Bird's Eye Charred Chive Dulce. There's always something new and delicious. Just head on over to marshallshotsauce.com, that's Marshalls, HAUTESAUCE.com. When checking out, enter VHUS in promo code for 20% off. That's VHUS at checkout for 20% off. And now, back to the show. We're back, and they hop in a car and are heading back to the morgue. Treat opens his shirt, and we get to see his real gross chest.
Yes, yes.
Very veiny and gray and
decomposing.
Yeah, decomposing.
Roger, you've been shot.
Oh, yeah, I meant to tell you about that.
It's amazing you lived as long as you did. So how are you feeling?
Great. Picture of health.
A sequel was commissioned to Dead Heat. It was written, and in this scene where she is sort of giving him a living autopsy, in the sequel she has to do that for herself. They wrote a whole sequence where you have a medical examiner examining themselves, which was interesting, but sadly, Dead Heat opened on 1,000 screens and didn't warrant enough fanfare. So we didn't get Dead Heat 2. I know. It's a bummer. They see the head coroner outside, McGavin, and his license plate says Body Doc.
Yeah.
What a custom license plate. They head to the graveyard where there was another zombie attack, but the zombie came out of the grave, and it would have been great, but that was also cut. They drive up to the mausoleum, and all these moments where Treat is thinking about his mortality. He's really down in the dumps and processing this sort of situation.
Nice place to spend the rest of your life. Swaying palms, the smell of jasmine, quiet neighbors.
Now, in your profession, there's a lot of things that go into it. You have to be trained in a variety of different ways. But one of the things that I think is really important is sort of self-care. So how do you sort of look out for you so that you can be present in all of these situations? Do you make sure that you have time to read, people meditate? I mean, there's all kinds of different things.
Yeah. I do a lot of times after a hard day, I'll go to the gym or I'll go for a run. Weekends, I make sure spend time with my kids and family and, do different things. I do a lot of hiking, a lot of outdoor stuff. I have friends that aren't police officers, which for me is big because it takes me away from talking about police work all the time. So when we talk about normal stuff, of course, they want to hear the police stories sometimes. But we get on other conversations, kids and, whatever they're up to. So,
and one of the things you touched on earlier is like exposure to people in different walks of life, we'll say, can humanize people and we're all just people. But in your profession, as also like social work, like my wife and I did, you can also be facing some of the darkest subject matter or, people that are always doing something wrong or whatever that you're seeing. How do you keep from that changing your perspective on the world?
I think a lot of it is with, having friends that are outside of law enforcement. I mean, and realizing that when you do go to these things, we're called in people's worst moments. We're not called when they won the lottery. We're not called when
their kid's birthday.
Yes,
they're
their
just
kid's
all
birthday,
happy.
or their kids had a great game.
Yeah.
We're called at kind of their low moments or when they need help. And so getting out in the public, walking in and getting your coffee instead of going through a drive-through, making yourself out there and talking to regular people we serve for me, it's a good way. So it kind of lets me see people when they're having a good day.
That's awesome.
Not when they're having the bad day.
Yeah, that totally makes sense. That's just like a equal exposure, so that you can face the other things and then also see life and like your kids and stuff. Or does it ever get weird that people constantly feel like they're gonna get caught? Like when people are driving and you see everyone change their speed because they see you.
Oh, yeah. Or you come up to an intersection and you kind of see somebody do the little reach over, grab their seatbelt and pull it over. You're just kind of like, I probably wouldn't have noticed until you made it obvious. Or they're on their cell phone, they see you and they slowly bring the cell phone down and put it in their lap. And it's very humorous. There's a lot of humor in our jobs when we run into stuff like that.
That's awesome.
That kind of crack us up.
Yeah, that's good. It's just one of those things. Because people, this isn't NPR and we won't get into crazy stuff, but people do have some negative feelings, say, about police sometimes, and I think a lot of that is in the harmless world that I'm talking about. The same way they would react to their parents. Like, they're like, I don't want someone telling me what to do. And then they treat you on the front lines like you're the lawmaker when you're like, I didn't set the speed limit, It's like those kind of things people just are like, it's the police person that's doing it. And it's like, laws change and you have to adhere to that. Like, you know, whether it's the seatbelt, which my dad is the number one person to be like, we grew up not wearing seatbelts, you know, and now we gotta wear seatbelt. And you're just like, that's the person that would pull you over. It wasn't the person that was like, I made sure that everyone had to wear seatbelts.
No, we don't make the laws.
It's just funny. I don't know why people's brains do that, but
yeah,
they certainly do.
So now what? I haven't got a key.
Allow me.
Isn't that illegal?
Yeah.
In movies, you often have these scenes where the police just do whatever they want.
Yep.
But you can't really do that.
No.
And I encountered that when I needed help from the police because we lived next to meth people I was mentioning before we were recording. And I'm like, can you just, like, arrest them because they're crazy? And the officers had to be like, we can't do anything because right now they're just crazy. Like, they have to do something else, you know? And are those kind of frustrations, like, because you obviously are seeing a situation, but you have limitations. Is that ever frustrating to you, or are you just resigned to, like, I understand the situation?
It is, and I've kind of gotten to the point where I understand, but it is frustrating because people see things on TV where we just, go in and grab people, or we see something, and, you know, we take care of it, you know, in 5, 10, 15 minutes, and that's not the case in real life. You know, we have to look at search warrants, we have to look at people's, you know, their rights.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, no, that's a great point. It's just something that you see Lethal Weapon, any of these movies where they're just like, I could do whatever I want and blow up the houses and do all these crazy things. But you're like, no, unfortunately, that movie would be 8 movies because they'd be getting warrants and doing all these proper channels of things because once they got to the courts, everything would be thrown out anyway because things weren't done according to, oh man. To be very boring. A lot of movies would be very boring.
Yes, they wouldn't be near as exciting.
No. Did you ever see the movie Hot Fuzz?
Yes.
I love the part in that where they talk about all the paperwork that they have to do, and then it actually shows that part that you never see in buddy cop films, where they're just like, oh, all the forms they have to fill out. Dick Miller was the night watchman, and his part was shot and cut, unfortunately, because he's a great character actor. They peek inside a lampshade. I don't know why they peek inside the lampshade, but in it is a number code in the mausoleum. They head back to her house, and on the TV is DOA, the movie that this is riffing on, which is pretty awesome. And then we got dead Joe Piscopo upside down in a fish tank.
Yeah.
Roger?
Very weird. We don't find out anything about this. We just see him, and because his head's in the fish tank, I didn't even know it was him the first time I saw it until 10 minutes later, and I was like, why isn't Joe in this movie anymore? And I'm like, oh, he was dead. All right. There's a weird dead fish motif in this movie, and with the frozen fish in the beginning.
Yes.
Joe Piscopo in this scene, and then there's later on when her office is shot up, a fish tank that's full of dead fish.
Yes, that's right.
Something I was thinking, they didn't say it in this movie, is do you think that this was a funny riff on, like, you're going to be sleeping with the fishes? They suspended him and put his head in a fish tank? Like, maybe a line was cut or something, but, like, I just feel like that's such a thing.
Yeah, there was a lot of...
You're going to sleep with the fishes.
Yeah.
No one said that on your beat, have they?
No,
okay.
No.
That'd be a really weird sort of old-time mafia thing to say.
Yes, it would be different.
Next, Treat enters a super 80s bathroom, and Lindsay's in a towel, and Treat and her talk, and if he wasn't rotting, you'd think this is where the sex scene's going to happen in this movie.
Yep.
Sorry, Roger. I didn't want to tell you. I didn't think you'd understand.
What are you talking about?
I, lied about the drugs. I was in the hospital because I was dying too.
But then her arm falls off.
Yeah.
So her hand starts turning black, and you're like, this is interesting. And then it's like the most graphic, horrific part of the movie as her face melts off and her arm falls off.
Yeah.
And then her head falls off, rolls over, and then says, I'm sorry, Roger, with no vocal cords, which is a super crazy part, because now we're like in supernatural territory, not just like zombie world.
I'm sorry, Roger. Please forgive me.
It's so wild. It's really crazy. Treat makes a phone call and discovers a code by typing the numbers, and it spells body doc. So now we know, with all that great police work, who's behind everything.
Yep.
In comes Treat Williams, and he's going to face off with McGavin. He's very decomposing at this point. It's a classic film noir scene. He's got the gun drawn, and they deliver these back and forth. It's really lovely. I love film noir and all the kind of double talk and things that happen.
What are you doing here?
What do you think, McNabb?
You'd have to be more specific than that.
Okay, you want specific, here it comes. You killed me. And you killed Doug. And maybe you didn't kill Randy, but you should have had the decency to let her stay dead.
What on earth are you talking about?
Revenge, McNabb. And you're on the receiving end unless you come up with some real fast answers.
But this doesn't make any sense. I was helping you.
I don't think so. Loudermilk's think tank built a machine for resurrecting people, and you've been trying it out, haven't you?
That's absurd. Oh, of course, Roger, you're losing your mind. Your brain is deteriorating.
But zombies show up, and they knock Treat Williams out. I know I don't want to get into the realism of the situation, but could you knock a dead person unconscious?
Yeah,
they hit him on the head, and it's like, wait, now I'm thinking about consciousness and where it would go if you're dead.
Yeah, that was an interesting part.
It's so strange. Treat's handcuffed in the back of an ambulance. The ambulance is impossible to escape from, they say, and he uses his foot to, I guess, undo the brake. Is that what?
Yeah. I think it was put the van in gear.
Oh, gear. Yeah. It starts rolling down the hill. It's pretty amazing, this sequence, and he's super excited about it because he's dead.
Yeah.
It explodes. Which, I'm not into realism here, but do vans just explode like that?
No. I don't think it was running either.
Okay,
so.
Yeah, it wasn't on at all. So both leads are dead. This is a very interesting part of the movie where the two main characters you've been watching are now both deceased. So it's like, who are we going to watch? But we see a body bag. It's smoke coming out, and it starts to unzip. And now Treat is in his full sort of where we're going to get to, decomposing. Half of his face is now a crazy monster effect.
Yep.
The cop pulls a gun on him. This cop is Shane Black, who has gone on to direct a lot of films. He's a writer as well.
Wow.
But his brother was the person working on this film, so he got to play a bit part as the police officer that pulls the gun.
Hold it. That's far enough. Detective Mortis, homicide. You're the cop? Surprise.
But Treat pulls out his badge, and then Shane Black has to just give him his gun.
Yeah.
You wouldn't just give your gun to another officer, right?
That's not normal.
Okay, good. Good. It's good to know that they took some liberties in the sequence with the dead police officer. We have all the bad guys are now in one place. They're all around the resurrection machine. And Vincent Price is back. He's not dead.
Yep.
He delivers a wonderful monologue about how the rich should live on forever and the poor people shouldn't. And it's we have like a class war set up in the middle of this 80s movie, apparently.
Yeah. Like rodents after a lump of cheese. Isn't it sad? Everybody dies, rich and poor. Death doesn't discriminate. At least not until now.
Treat crashes his motorbike, flinging himself through the window, sliding on his back and shooting all the bad guys. It's a pretty amazing situation. Very unsafe. Treat keeps offing people, and he even gets some witty catchphrases where the guy stands up and he shoots him, and then he says, "Sit down." You know. A little disturbing because that guy's just a security guard. He's just doing his job.
Yeah.
And then Treat just shoots like. He's not hired probably by them, understanding that they're henchmen and, resurrecting people. So I was like, I felt bad for that guy, really.
Yeah.
He's just on a regular Wednesday. We get a zombie versus zombie with the Uzis, and they're just shooting each other endlessly.
That's right, yeah.
It's so funny to me. And originally, I guess that scene was like 2 more minutes of just, which makes me think of RoboCop when like the Ed 209 comes into the office and just shoots the guy for so long. Like, it's very disturbing. Treat enters the chamber. the more people die. There's a corpse on the table, and Darren McGavin reveals it's Joe Piscopo.
I want him. You're dead, McNabb. You're even deader than I am.
Oh, I don't think so.
And they bring Joe back, and Joe picks up Treat by his throat.
Yep.
And you're like, oh no, he's going to kill our hero, who's dead already. And then Treat says,
Doug, remember the lipstick? Mulberry wine brings out my eyes.
And it snaps him back in. So we have that moment comes back. Treat says, hi, Doug, welcome to Zombieland, which is a funny little line. I wonder if that's where Zombieland got its title from. There's more Uzis. I love 80s movies with Uzis. Have you ever seen an Uzi in real life?
No, I haven't.
Okay, I haven't either.
I forgot about him until I saw this movie.
Yeah, it was such a... Every bad guy was like an Uzi was the weapon, and they all spray. They don't even... They don't necessarily even point it. They're just like...
No, it's all from the hip.
Yeah, it's so wild. Vincent says, why can't you kill him? Kill him. Why can't you kill him? Over and over and over.
Oh, no, you bastards aren't gonna take me.
You cheated me.
McGavin shoots himself in the head. Our villain takes himself out of the equation. So what do?
Bring him back.
They put him on the resurrection machine so they can kill him.
Yep.
But instead he explodes. It's not really explained how they did that, but...
Yeah, that was...
Yeah. So you're watching a film now where all the main characters are technically dead, which is, I think, a very unique situation.
Man, Roger, you are a mess. I've seen Meatloaf that looks better than you.
You're not exactly a Forest Lawn poster child yourself, Doug. Hey, we really trashed our ass, didn't we?
That's asses, Roger. Hey, Roger, you think we'll be reincarnated?
As what?
I don't know. Maybe you get a choice. You can be whatever you want.
Oh, you mean like a statesman or a president or a prize-winning novelist?
Personally, I'd like to come back as the seat on a girl's bike.
Now that is truly inspiring.
Thank you.
Hip beats start playing, so we know that it ends, and they walk out into the fog saying funny lines, hopefully leading us towards the sequel that we sadly never got.
Yeah.
And that's the end. The title explodes in a very celebratory way, and that's Dead Heat. Any final thoughts on this film?
It was an interesting film. When I watched it the second time, I actually found it way more humorous and picking up on the little lines. But it was a good movie. It was one of the very few I think I've seen where everybody, all your heroes, villains, and everybody dies in the end.
Everyone's dead, yeah. And not even like, because it's so lighthearted and goofy and they're zombies or whatever, like none of it's... There's no downside to it. There's not like a dour moment where people... I mean, there's moments really briefly where they sort of touch on the reality of the situation, but it's not something where you're like, oh, I gotta wade through the sad part or whatever, you know? Like, even Joe, it's, 30 seconds that he's, like, sad before they resurrect Treat Williams? Like, it keeps at a brisk pace the whole time on the way through. Oh, yeah, so before we get to the final questions... my Seattle story that I hinted at the beginning when I broke the law. So I went to Seattle. Your jurisdiction's not Seattle.
No,
right? Okay,
no.
Perfect.
I'm in Oregon.
So I grew up in Springfield, Eugene area of Oregon. And in Eugene, it's a college town for the most part. So everyone leaves. And in the summer, it's super chill. So, I would just walk all over the city. I never drove. So... I never paid attention to crosswalk signals. So in Seattle, I was crossing the street. I just moved to Portland, but I was in Seattle visiting, and I just walked across the street. And on the other side was an officer. And he was like, whoa, what are you doing? And I'm like, crossing the street, like completely oblivious. To him, it probably looked like I was being a total asshole. And he's like, I crossed the street completely. And he goes, you can't do that. And I was like, well, I was just crossing the street. And he's like, you have to wait for the signal. And I was like, well, that's not really a thing. And he's like, this is totally a thing. Like, it's a law. And I'm like, well, not in Portland. And he's like, I'm pretty sure it is in Portland. And I was like, well, I don't know. And then at this moment, he realized that I was completely clueless. I had no idea that this very basic thing that people encounter every day. So he didn't write me a ticket. He gave me a warning. But it was just... when I replay it in my head, it's so funny because he was just like used to people like seeing the police officer and then obeying the law, and I just clearly just walked right in front. It's fairly a weird interaction, but that's my breaking the law story. So it's a little light, but
Yeah.
There you go. Are there any common misconceptions about a police officer?
Coffees and donuts.
Right? Oh, good one.
It's kind of, we do like coffee for the caffeine, but kind of gotten away from the donuts.
Right. That's good. I mean, you're exercising and being healthy, so yeah.
Yeah. Boy, that's a good question.
Yeah. There's probably a lot, and we don't have to get into the heavy stuff, but.
Oh, let me see. We don't give tickets to everybody. We don't get paid extra. You give tickets to people.
Oh, yeah. Quotas is something people always talk about.
We don't have quotas.
Don't have quotas.
No quotas.
That's good. We could break that one.
Yeah, I've never heard of such a thing.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I hear it from my friends and different people, but in the law enforcement community, I've never heard.
That's that perception. Is that like you would come back with a big stack full of tickets and they'd be like, oh, you did it. You caught them all. They're all breaking the law.
Yep. No, at the end of the year, we don't get tallied up and.
Got it.
Hey, Jeremy got the most tickets given this year. Or,
you don't put them in a jar and be like, guess how many tickets are in this jar?
Nope. There's no lottery for
Okay.
it. There's nothing. We do a lot of paperwork. Probably 60% of our time's done doing paperwork. It's not out chasing bad guys.
Right.
And, what other ones? There's a lot of them out there.
Is there a weapons locker that has a guy standing in it where you can sign out a flamethrower?
No, no, none of those.
That's disappointing.
None of those. We, we mostly save some boring, checking stuff out and checking stuff in and making sure our cars are clean. And yeah, it's not as exciting as they make it in the movies.
I mean, that makes sense. They got to glamorize it and get rid of a lot of the realism because it would slow the pace of things down.
It would. It'd make a long movie. There'd be lots of sequels to figure out what's going to happen in the end.
Yeah, it would have to be like, they'd probably do it now on HBO where they could have like 10 episodes. So it would be like 10 hours, but it would be one day. And like the middle episodes, like 4 of them would just be paperwork.
Yep. Well, yeah. Yeah. I can't think of any other misconceptions.
I mean, there's a lot, I'm sure.
Yeah.
One question I had that I forgot to put in my earlier notes is, like I touched on, there's many aspects to being a police officer. So do you have trainings on all these things, from like weapon stuff to how to deal with people in escalated situations, or how to support firefighters in the event of a fire, or...
Yes, actually, over the last several years, there's been a lot more training.
Okay.
Of course, there's the firearms, the defensive tactics, but there's a lot to deal with when you come up on people suffering from mental health issues.
Yeah.
De-escalation techniques, and laws. Laws have changed so much. We're constantly getting training on how laws change, or new laws, or laws that have gone away, or how to deal with certain case laws. It's a lot of training, a lot of work, a lot of things to remember. We have cheat sheets, and thank goodness for Google now. We Google a lot of stuff, and there's a lot of information out on Google in the state of Oregon how we deal with stuff.
And do you, I mean, I'm sure you have to have like CPR training and things like that as well.
Yep. We have to, part of keeping our certification is we have to have first aid CPR, stay current on that. We've actually gone a little farther, and unfortunately today's day and age, with more intense first aid, how to care for wounds and tourniquet use and life-saving procedures. So law enforcement's come a long way since I started.
Yeah. That's, I mean, just in my old job, the amount of different trainings for working with people who are escalated and all those sort of situations, it really sort of opened my eyes to like, oh wow, like this is just one aspect to this job. So I'd imagine as a police officer, there's a variety of those things that you have to constantly be up to date on.
Yep. And there's some of us that are a little better at some things than other things, and
naturally, people are like that.
Yeah, we make sure we use those. So if one of the other guys I work with is better in a certain area, I'll call him over and have him give me a hand, or they'll call me over. So it's a real team atmosphere in how we work, and at the end of the day, it's about serving the community and the best we can do at it.
That's awesome. What is a good day like for you as a police officer?
Oh, man. A good day is, having, getting to work, being able to get my vehicle ready, not running out to a call and briefing with the guys and then going and grabbing a cup of coffee and, going out and running traffic, doing a few calls, having time to do follow-up, interact with people, get reports done, keeping the sergeants and management happy with my proactiveness and getting back and typing reports, and when I go home, not being buried and having positive experiences with the public.
Yeah, being able to turn it off, you mean, like when you go home, so you can be present for family.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's a whole nother skill set. You see, part of the reason my wife and I did what we did for 10 years and not further was like, there's some points in these jobs where it can change you, or, well, it's going to probably change you before you change it. So the trainings and things, the mindfulness that we talked about earlier, make it you able to do the job and be sort of fresh each time, rather than the grizzled old detective you would see in movies where they just don't care anymore and they're going to be not exactly warm to people and not great at verbal de-escalation,
Yes.
You always see those characters. So, yeah, it's that being able to sort of turn it off, whereas I think my wife and I both were that mindset where we had to keep solving the problem because we were working with the same people. So it's like, how am I going to get through to this person? How am I going to...
Yeah.
And because of that, at a certain point, you're like, let's pass the torch to the next person,
Yeah. Yeah, and those are kind of the bad days when when I'm off and I'm trying to think, gosh, how could I have serviced that call better? How could I have helped those people better? Or trying to figure out the next day how I'm gonna, work a case. Those are the rougher days.
Yeah. That's my next question: is what's a bad day like? Because I can imagine it could go real bad.
A bad day is the minute we get our car and ready for shift. We're out taking call after call. None of the calls go well. I mean, obviously, traffic accidents, things where people get hurt, those are the type of calls we don't like to see, because we don't want to go knock on somebody's door. Hey, your loved one's been in an accident. They're on their way to the hospital now. How can we help you?
Yeah.
Not getting lunch in the afternoon.
Yeah, low blood sugar.
Yep, there is that thing. We do get hangry too.
Yeah.
So it's a...
You work a 10-hour shift?
10-hour shift.
So let's say it's 10 hours and you're in the middle of something with someone you're verbally de-escalating or something. Do you go over and are you compensated for that, or do you have to, in the middle, pass it on to somebody else?
Most of the time we stay over.
Depending
on what the situation is, somebody may come take over for us, but I mean, if we're in the middle of it, they'll have us stay over, just depending. If it looks like it's going to be a 3 or 4 hour thing, they're going to kick us loose, but if it's going to be 30-40 minutes, we'll stay, help out.
Got it.
So it easier for people to deal with one person through a situation than it's a little more impersonal. Hey, this Fred's here, he's going to take over for me, and they're feeling like, oh my, am I not that important that you're going to finish up with me?
Yeah.
So
I was just wondering that. What are your favorite things about being a police officer?
A couple different things. I like the freedom. I'm able to, if I want to go out and run traffic, if I want to get out and talk to people, if, fielding calls and doing different types of investigations, helping people, at the end of the day, that's what I really like. If I can go home and I know I've helped somebody through a bad situation, or even if it's a flat tire out on the road, help them get help or change the tire for them. Those are good things.
Yeah. Awesome. Do you have any advice for someone who's interested in law enforcement?
I would say be a reserve.
Okay.
Get out there, ride with, even if you don't have time to be a reserve, go ride with officers, see, and I encourage everybody to do that. It kind of gives a different perspective. You may have think being a police officer is one way, but if you go ride with a few different people, you may see what they go through and have a different view.
Yeah.
So it may give you an idea if it's something you really want to do or not. We've had several guys come through and they've, after about a year, this just isn't for me, and which I respect, and they'll quit.
It's better than sticking with it when it's not for you.
It is. Unfortunate part is, they leave a great job or something to, a lot of them have gone back to that type of work.
Mm-hmm.
But, if they had ridden for a while or become a reserve, they might have noticed that a little bit earlier than going through about a year of training.
Yeah, makes sense. Which brings us to the final question, and it's my favorite question. Jeremy, what are your dreams like?
Like
at nighttime.
Nighttime? Oh, there's some nights where I spend a lot of time awake.
Mm-hmm.
I can't sleep. There are some horrible dreams and stuff, and then there's other times where, yeah, I sleep pretty good. But it's hit and miss. It's up and down. It's like you said, doing the job for so long, no matter what it is, and dealing with people's bad situations.
Yeah.
There's times where you have some horrible dreams and times where you sleep great.
Yeah. This is the first time I've had a police officer on the program and realized like the gambit of, positive to negative interactions that you could have, that your brain could be like, I'm going to replay this one, or I'm going to tweak this bad situation, when you're like, this is the time when I'm trying to recharge so that I could be like on point in the day. Like, what are you doing here?
I've had weeks. It normally goes in kind of like spurts. I'll have like 2 or 3 days where I just don't sleep well at all. And then when my weekend hits, I crash. I sleep all day. I feel like I wasted my weekend away, but
gotta refuel to do that. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, it takes a lot to be present for people, and especially to enter a situation of, already escalated people, and for you to have to mentally decode the situation, not necessarily the words people are using, but understanding, what is happening there. And because they're all speaking from different points of view, some of them are very heightened. Some people are mad at each other. In all the situations I'm thinking about, it's like one person's perspective, but you might have a car accident or something where someone rear-ended somebody, and there's heated back and forth between people, and having to navigate all of that, I can't even fathom it.
It's tricky sometimes. Some people de-escalate really quickly when somebody shows up, and other people, it almost
sets them off.
Yeah, it almost heightens it. Mm-hmm. And you kind of got to sit and listen to them for a while before they realize they're,
Yeah, they got to come around on their own.
Yeah,
almost.
Exactly. They got to realize that, hey, we're not getting anywhere here. We need to calm down a little bit and move forward.
Wow. Well, it's a fascinating profession, and I thank you so much for not just watching Dead Heat, but for coming here and sharing some of your path with law enforcement.
Thank you.
Yeah, totally appreciate it. If I ever find another police film, maybe I could reach out to you again?
Absolutely.
All right,
I'd
awesome.
watch another one.
Cool. All right, thank you so much.